Okay, welcome to our July 28th Board of County Commissioners meeting. If we all could stand for a moment of silence and then remain standing for the pledge. Okay, presets, we have 905 public comment and 505 public comment. Additional items, Department 7, request for authorization for the county administrator to execute memorandums of agreement, MOUs, for distribution of the CARES Act funds and approval of personal assistance and emergency food relief, MOU, between Martin County and the United Way of Martin County. There are no consent polls, and with that, I'll take a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the agenda by Commissioner Hetherington, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, now we're going to start with proclamations and special presentations. Ms. Laura Beaupre.
Good morning, Commissioners. First up, we have a proclamation declaring Purple Heart Day in Martin County, Florida. The Purple Heart is the oldest military decoration in use today and evolved from the Badge of Military Merit. The Purple Heart is awarded to members of the U.S. Armed Forces who have been wounded or killed in combat with a declared enemy of the United States. In honor of Purple Heart Day, August 7th, local Purple Heart recipients and all Martin County veterans are commended for their service to our great nation. And here to accept, we have veteran David West.
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioners, it's an honor and humbling to accept this award on behalf of all Purple Heart recipients, those who paid the ultimate sacrifice, and our frontliners who face danger all day, every day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next proclamation is declaring Parks and Recreation Month in Martin County, Florida. Parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout the country and are vitally important to ensuring the health of our community and maintaining the quality of life we enjoy. The board encourages residents and visitors to take advantage of all of the great amenities and programs offered throughout Martin County by our Parks and Recreation Department. And here to accept, we have Kevin Abate, our Parks and Recreation Department Director.
Good morning, everybody. Kevin Abate, Parks Director. I just wanted to do a big thank you to all the hardworking employees of the Parks Department and read you something that the National Recreation and Parks Association just kind of had on their website about NRPA and Parks and Recreation Month, which is supported in July. Every day in communities across the country, the people of Parks and Recreation are providing essential services and making their communities better places to live, work, and play. Because of their critical work, NRPA wants to shift the narrative of Parks and Recreation, and we can't think of a better time to start this movement other than Parks and Recreation Month. This July, we begin to redefine the field of Parks and Recreation as essential, vitally necessary to sharing how Parks and Recreation professionals are the front line confronting our most pressing health, environmental, and social challenges. And this year's theme, We Are Parks and Recreation, we want to highlight the diversity of the Parks and Recreation professionals and showcase their selfless work. And I kind of, this year in July, since the pandemic, our Parks and Recreation team has gone above and beyond their job description, monitoring county boat ramps. I'll bring it back in time here. Monitoring county golf courses, checking IDs at beaches, delivering meals to our grant-funded programs, delivering meals to Council on Aging 5 days a week. We've seen increases in parks attendance like Sanskrit at 43% since the pandemic started. We've had provided online programs for our children for virtual training, thanks to the funding from the Children's Services Council. Assembled and delivered activity bags to kids, provided childcare for employees till today. We're still doing that now, and have had some really challenges operating our summer camps and reopening our water park and other amenities. So I do want to thank all of the hardworking employees of the Parks Department, and thank you, our Commissioner, for your support. Thank you.
We took a mental picture. Look good. And now I'll turn it over to Ms. Krista.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. So we have with us today from the United Way, Elizabeth Glenn. We also have our United Way, the individual that ran our campaign this past year, Beth Beltran, and with her is also Joy Puerta. The two of them did a phenomenal job relative to our United Way campaign. And we had three challenges. One was the highest percentage of payroll deductions. That was the Growth Management Department we recognized. And today we're going to recognize the department that had the most volunteer hours. They had 473 hours actually that they worked together as a department to provide to the United Way and various programs. And then we also have the highest percentage of revenue that was raised with the administration department. So we have libraries and administration that will be recognized today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Elizabeth and Beth.
So go ahead, Elizabeth, and I'll let you get started, and you can pass
Thank
the
you
mic
again
over.
for having us here today. We truly appreciate our continued partnership with the Board of County Commissioners, and we're so thankful for the opportunity to celebrate the success of your department, internal department challenges. So as you can see, 473 volunteer hours is pretty amazing. Whether it's local flooding or global pandemic or what would normally be in a typical year, United Way really does mobilize volunteers in our community. And we are so thankful that the county's employees really step up every time we have a volunteer opportunity. So you guys are always some of the first to sign up. So that's going to highlight a little bit more.
Yeah, if you could go to the next slide. Right here you can see the three different department challenges that we had with the United Way campaign. It was just a fun way to see, have the departments compete against each other, and just a fun way to raise money and awareness for the United Way and all they do for this community. So the highest volunteers that registered for the county-supported United Way functions, I have to hand it, the employees of this county, and I know you all know this, are just a class act. I mean, they just did not hesitate to volunteer for some of the go ahead to the next slide. We have some pictures, some of the functions that the county supports to raise funds and awareness and help for the community. These particular pictures, and you can just see the number. These aren't all the pictures, but just the number of employees that volunteered their time to help with the Toys of Tots and United Way Holiday Project at Christmas time. But we also have Tools for Success to raise awareness and supplies for schools, and what are some of the other?
Absolutely. So in these photos, you can see, and again, as Beth mentioned, there's so many more pictures of county employees. United Way of Martin County is the official local coordinator for the U.S. Marine Corps' Toys for Tots. So when you see those drop boxes, that's us. We're Santa's little helpers going around and collecting. So not only did employees help to collect toys, they helped sorted them for gender and age, and also helped distributed them to families in need. The school supply program that Beth mentioned, last year the county employees also helped with school supply drive and sorting for that as well. Plus always having a team at our Day of Caring on 9/11. So you guys are a very active group, and we truly appreciate that.
So the next slide. So the winner of the department challenge for the most volunteer hours is the library department. Jennifer Salas is here with a couple of handouts.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jen Salas, Library Director. Librarians by nature like to help people, so it's fitting that we are being awarded today for the most volunteer hours. I did just want to introduce really quickly two of our staff that were integral in this campaign for the library. So Mo Curley is our library development specialist, and she really rallied our staff to be interested in volunteering in all of these opportunities. And Darlene Encomio is our literacy education and outreach manager. She was our ambassador for our department for the campaign. So thank you very much.
So our next internal department challenge is for the overall support, the overall revenue. So when we have amazing teams like your team running a United Way campaign that really supports what United Way's efforts are in the community. We've just announced that this year's investment is $1.86 million, $1.87 million here locally. Those dollars do stay in Martin County, and they are invested in local agency programs. This year we're investing in 44. So we are super excited about that, and your support allows us to do those.
And so when we say highest percentage of revenue total, that means the department that had the highest percentage of revenue total based on payroll deductions, cash contributions, and fundraiser proceeds. And I have to say, some of the creativity that the ambassadors came up for fundraisers were just awesome. Go ahead. This is some of the examples of fundraisers. The first big fundraiser we had was at the safety fair. We had all the ambassadors go back to their departments and contribute items that that had to do with safety, and we raffled off those baskets. We had a barbecue for the cause, which was very successful, and I did get approval from the chief to use this picture for the costume for the cause. They raised money where people paid to vote what costume they wanted to see him in, and there's a picture of him in the Bam Bam costume. So the winner of this challenge was the administration department.
Thank you, Beth. So this is representative of all of the divisions that we have in administration. As you know, it's not just us. It's a huge team, and I'm so fortunate to have the team that we have. And I appreciate everybody's support. I sit on the United Way board. What they do for our community is just unbelievable, unbelievable. And they're helping us with our CARES Act. They've been involved all throughout everything that we've been experiencing for the last at least 6 months. So I appreciate the United Way, and I appreciate my department and all our departments. Thank you.
Okay, next up is presentation by the Business Development Board, which, by the way, could not have a more important role these days in the economic climate that we have. And I am the commission liaison for the Business Development Board, and their volunteer board and Ms. Goodrich are working very diligently, and we thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, administrators, and the community. As the commissioner said, I'm Joan Goodrich, and I'm your executive director of the Business Development Board, and I'm joined today by David Powers, one of our directors. We wanted to provide you a quick update on our education campaign for the upcoming referendum that you supported on our August 18th primary relating to the economic development ad valorem tax exemption. Next slide. We've had this tool in our program, this tool in our toolbox, Martin County's Job Creation Toolbox, since the voters first authorized this in 2010. And it's a unique tool. It's actually given to us by Florida statute on the condition that voters authorize it. It's designed to encourage the construction of new office buildings, warehouse distribution facilities, manufacturing plants, the acquisition of new equipment, and the creation of new jobs. Next slide, please. The BDB has been working diligently with your team and our economic partners at the Chambers, Economic Council, the Realtors Association, the Marine Association, and others to educate the voters on the August 18th referendum. We're explaining that the tool seeks to encourage business investment by temporarily reducing some of the county's taxes on the new taxable value that might come from a new facility. We're also clarifying what it doesn't do. It doesn't decrease the existing tax base that you have to use and provide quality services to us. It doesn't affect the taxes that are paid to our cities, town, villages, school district, or other taxing authorities. It is not a cash payment, and it is not given automatically, which is a little different than the homestead exemption that we get when we own residential property. The applicant actually must apply, is vetted, prove economic benefit, and then it's considered by you, our representatives, each and every time that an application comes in. And of course, if it is reauthorized by voters. As I mentioned, the next slide, the tool is guided by Florida statutes. It's focused on certain businesses. It's trying to encourage existing and new manufacturers, data centers, targeted industries, headquarters and divisional offices to grow and create good jobs in Martin County. Again, and they must put up a new facility, they must buy new equipment, and they must provide new good jobs to qualify for the tool. Next slide. When it comes to targeted industries, these on the slide, clean tech, life sciences, information technology, aviation, aerospace, is how this tool is looking to encourage that investment. And why these industries? Because again, these are the industries that bring new money into our community, and then they often pay higher than our average county wage, which right now is about $41,000 and change. David?
First,
slide.
I just want to say, next slide. First, I just want to say thank you all for what you're going through right now. I know this is not what you signed up for, but greatly appreciate it. And thank your families because they're living right there with you. So appreciate you guys for your leadership. We just want to let you know that there's, in the surrounding area, pretty much there's a lot of other counties that have this exact same, tax abatement tool that they use. Most recently was the new City Electric TAMCO up in Port St. Lucie that just went up. It was a $32 million investment. 50 new jobs were created there. Again, and it's not set, all of these abatement programs will come back to the community for approval and things like that. Carrier Corp down in Palm Beach County, they did the same thing. Beautiful building right off of 95 with 380 jobs. And to get that type of commitment to come in. There's site selection companies that go around the world looking for expansion opportunities or new growth opportunities. And if we don't have the box checked that we have some of these programs in place, then we don't even get invited to the dance. So it's just an important thing, again, that'll always come back to the commission, always come back to the community if we want to participate. I know Martin County's had a very good track record of doing that. Next slide, please.
Whoops.
Maybe how we might use that. Next slide. Some of the new, that's the last slide. Some of the new opportunities that we have not had since 2010. We have some new industrial opportunities that are in front of us. We have the Indiantown Marine Center, which is a 33-acre site on the St. Lucie Waterway that can accommodate to 160-foot boats. We have Ag Tech that is out there. We have 7 J's Industrial Park, Florida Commerce Industrial Park, Pineland Prairie, Martin Enterprise Park, and all the other CRA districts that we have for infill opportunities. Next slide. Again, this tool is a good opportunity, again, when we're out there in the worldwide competition of attracting these companies and new job growth, to be able to check the box and to be able to continue on. So again, thank all of you that have been behind this opportunity as we take it to the voters. And again, greatly appreciate the push and knowing that the Business Development Board is continuing to push for this to put back in the toolbox and get it back. So again, thank you very much.
So I just wanted to also remind the commissioners in our community that we have created a hub at vdbmc.org in which we've got frequently asked questions on this, because sometimes it is difficult for our layperson to understand what we're trying to do in economic development. And again, these are the goals that we have in Martin County as we try to build a stronger economy. When you first looked at putting this on the ballot, of course, this was pre-COVID. Nowhere in our wildest dreams did we think that we were going to be in the middle of a global pandemic. So again, we thank you very much for helping us spread the word to our community that this is a referendum item on August 18th. And if they need any information, they can view bdbmc.org. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now we're on to public comment. We have one speaker form. Mr. Tom Pine. You know the deal, 3 minutes.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Tom Pine. I live in Jensen Beach, Florida. I've been a resident of Martin County for over 45 years. It's a sad day for Martin County residents now that free speech at meetings is limited to those of us who risk our health to speak during this pandemic. While written comments can still be sent in, they will not be read aloud, which makes them all but useless. The double standard in Martin County between taxpayers and the good old boys and the pay-to-play crowd has never been more severe. A few weeks ago, at the special meeting of the Martin County Commissioners, they passed a law requiring all persons in Martin County to wear face coverings in public places while battling the coronavirus. This was allowed based on the State Department emergency that enforced by the Sheriff's Department, with escalating fines and enforcement. On May 8th, 2020, I filed a complaint with the State Attorney's Office with the same photo I showed this commission of downtown Jensen Beach, in which businesses take up 70 to 80% of the public sidewalk for their own personal gain, with no social distancing. On May 11th, I received an email from the Sheriff's Department stating that they would be forwarding the complaint to the Department of Business Regulation. And they spoke with the business manager, and have deputies drive by between calls to check. On May 13th, I sent a letter to the code enforcement with the same complaint. The three downtown businesses in Jensen Beach take 70 to 80% of the public sidewalk for their own personal gain, and now with the coronavirus, they're creating a dangerous health situation. On July 27, 2020, nothing in downtown Jensen Beach has changed. The Sheriff's Department drives by between calls and nothing changes. It's been over 2 months since the code enforcement notified, nothing's changed. From my own personal experience, it took code enforcement 1 day to threaten me with $1,000 a day fines for having shutters up while not in hurricane season. But the good old boys, that's a whole different story. It's all about who you know in Martin County. It has nothing to do with what's right or wrong. It's all about who you know. Thank you for your time and have a safe day.
Thank you, Mr. Pine. Okay, Commissioner comments. Commissioner Smith. All set this morning.
All set.
I'm all set. Commissioner Camp.
Just 2 quick comments, Mr. Chair. I think most of us, if not all of us, had seen yesterday, either in social media or heard, that what I would consider a pillar of our community, Dr. Howard Voss, who was a long-time member of Volunteers in Medicine, had passed away. A lot of people might not know that name, but if you had contact with him through the Volunteers in Medicine for decades, he donated and contributed his extensive medical talents to helping people that couldn't afford medical treatment. And quite often when you hear about, when you hear about people not being able to afford medical treatment, you would think the care that they would receive would be subpar. But in the case of Volunteers in Medicine and Dr. Howard Voss in particular, you got world-class medical treatment from a world-class individual, and the community will miss him. I'm sure my colleagues and I can agree that what he's done for our community made Martin County better, and his loss is all of our losses. And then also, sadly, last Friday, a 2013 South Fork High School graduate and Hobe Sound resident, lifelong resident of Martin County, Cooper Evans, tragically died in a car accident Friday morning. And I know that his family and his friends, his loss will create a deep, deep impact. And it's just another sad reminder of please be cautious when you're driving. This was not through any fault of his own. The roads were wet. It was early in the morning, not super early, like 9 o'clock in the morning, and the roads were wet, and he lost control of his vehicle. And so I just wanted to send my condolences to his family and friends. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Hurd.
Yeah, an observation and a question. 2 years ago, we passed a regulation outlawing snipe signs in county right-of-ways. It was in response, I think, largely to campaign signs in county rights-of-way. And as far as I know, that regulation is still in force, but not being enforced. I'm seeing campaign signs all over the county and county right-of-way, and I think that at least that was my motivation to, in large part, to pass that, was because of the unwanted proliferation of campaign signs. So if we could make sure that we're enforcing.
Yes, we'll follow up with the Code Enforcement Commissioner.
Thanks.
Harold?
Yes.
Just a follow-up to Ed's comments on Dr. Voss. Some of us had the privilege to be here when he started that program, and I can remember his earliest days coming to us as a county and asking if the county would participate financially and in a very small way. And what was always interesting about Dr. Voss is that he never really asked for the moon in terms of funding. He said that whatever portion that we could participate in, he would find a way to match it and match it again and rematch it, and I think successfully, incredibly successfully through the years. He did an absolutely remarkable, amazing job, and it was just, I can remember sitting with him, and he was this very passionate, kind person that had a vision, and his vision was to provide health care for those that otherwise wouldn't be able to get it, and just what a remarkable individual. I mean, really, a model of how healthcare can be delivered across the country, and from a little community like ours with a little initiative that he started and had a dream for. Absolutely remarkable what he did all these years. So, Ed, thank you for bringing that up. Super important and really will be very well missed as part of our community. Thank you.
Nothing for me right now.
All right. Okay, we're going to move on to, let's do the value aboard adjustment appointment. Ms. Gordon?
Yeah, I do. Hang on.
Mike, do you have anybody on Zoom?
No, ma'am.
Thanks.
No? Okay.
I already gave it.
You thought you were going to head him off the bus.
Next, while they're doing, I was thinking about doing the fair board or fair update. Is that,
The Fairgrounds discussion?
since we
Okay.
have some fairgrounds folks here?
Mr. Stokas is
All right.
ready to do that.
We'll
when
let
you're
Donna
ready.
do her thing first. Oh, you're going
Mr. Chair, thanks. Mr. Derek Baumgartner has 4, Mrs. Mary Gavin has 1, and Ms. Wendy Morse has 0.
Move appointment of Mr. Baumgartner, please.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Hurd, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Stokas?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Donna, what page is the fair item on? We're here today briefly to, as you recall, the board at a previous meeting had asked for staff to go back and research the means and cost to do a charrette process with the existing fairground property. and that occurred on March 3rd. And with doing so, we have proceeded with that. And Mr. Tom Lanahan and Dana, I forgot your last name. Little are here to present their scope and fee for the charrette process, which includes a study area map, a facilitation of the project host committee, various other items, as well as a project report. The total report cost is $195,800, in which staff would recommend, if you want to move forward with that, we would need to take that out of reserves. And with that, Mr. Little, if you could please present your scope and fee.
Good morning. Dana Little, Urban Design Director with Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. Yes, we began this discussion about some sort of public process, design process, and economic analyses actually at the end of last year. And through those discussions, we felt that as a group with George, that this property warranted a full public charrette. It's a public piece of property. It's nearly 16 and a half acres. Everybody knows it, you know, as being the Fairgrounds, so it's important to everybody in the community. That, of course, was before the pandemic. The proposal that we've put together really has three major components. One is a public outreach, interview, and charrette process. Number two is a full economic study so that the county administration and the body can make the best decisions about what is supportable from a market perspective on the site and what is potentially the highest and best use. And then sort of a design component where we would illustrate what some of those potentials are and test them for their financial feasibility. The market study and financial component of this is very robust. It's a full effort. And we felt that we would put forth that as a major component of this. Now, of course, due to COVID-19, we believe that we could continue with the public process. We've been involved in a couple of virtual charrettes, and while not ideal, you know, they're not as good as the in-person, you know, shoulder-to-shoulder working environment. If there is a sense of urgency for this project, we could make that happen. And in fact, many firms and many cities are moving forward with public processes in creative and virtual ways. George mentioned the overall fee for this. This would be a complete soup to nuts effort, and that fee would include all of the elements that I've described. In addition, we anticipate that from the execution of this agreement and the kickoff of this effort, it would be about a 12-month effort to do the interview process, to go through the public involvement process, to establish the market study, and then develop recommendations and then bring them to you in a formal proposal and report. So that concludes, I think, my presentation. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. Thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none?
Mr. Chair, there's also, as a part of this agenda item, two other sections that update the board as it relates to the utilities, to bring to the update as to where we're at with utilities to the new fairground. And that was based on the March 3rd meeting where the board authorized $500,000 for planning and design of the extension of the water and sewer main. And utilities is moving forward with that. And then the second portion of the update is an option to lease for the new fairgrounds, in which the board can see that the fairgrounds has submitted their 50% design plans and details, as well as development schedule. And Ms. Elizabeth Lenahan is here to answer any questions as regards to that.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Lanahan? Oh, yes.
Not for Ms. Lanahan. I just have a couple of observations, cautions. One is that the timeline for this is 12 months, and I am not at all certain that we're going to be able to have public meetings that would be adequate to serve our needs in the next 12 months. So I don't know how long the shelf life of whatever the product is, how long that's adequate, but I'm not convinced that the Fairgrounds is going to be leaving that site in the next 12 months. So, and also there is an out-of-state consultant, and I'm sure that they're experts in their field, but I don't think anybody knows more than we do about what our community, what our community wants and what our community needs. So I'm reluctant to spend $200,000 to, without enough public participation and using an out-of-town consultant and putting together a plan that's for the economy that we are in now. That's going to change, and our needs are going to change in the next year, and I don't want to force us to a market consideration that may not be valid in 2 years when we are going to execute the plan. So those are my reservations.
The timing right now seems problematic in my mind. Commissioner Heatherington.
Well, I had very similar comments. I know, Mr. Little, you said the sense of urgency. I think the sense of urgency for us depends on when that property might be vacated. So I know that we're planning on, depending on COVID, having a fair in 2021 on that property. Then depending on if the Fair Association is ready to move by 2022, I would be concerned, similar to Commissioner Hurd, on the market conditions and the what the shelf life of this study would be. So I think I would rather see, especially with the uncertain, I think by the beginning of the year, we might have a clearer picture, one way or the other economically. I would rather see it maybe move to start towards the beginning of 2021. I do think we do need a market study, an economic study. I would just rather see it pushed forward to the beginning of 2021.
Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you. I had the opportunity to speak to Mr. Little, and I'm a big fan of the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. I think that their work that they've done with us, for us in the past, has been top-notch, and we're going to see an example of it in a little bit today in a different agenda item. This particular project, however, I see differently. I've said consistently that I believe that what we needed to do, and one of the advantages of facilitating the existing Fair Association from moving from this site, which is obviously too small for what they've always tried to do there, and their success has forced them to alter their plans here in town over and over, as well as the fact that the activities that and the advantages and the changes that we've made across the street on our airport property has also eliminated a lot of their parking options and made it just much more difficult. So if you remember, what I was always talking about is the advantage of moving the fairground to a different location freed up, probably, in my opinion, the most valuable piece of property that the county owns. And so although I appreciate the fact that Mr. Little and the folks at the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council could come in and work their magic, I see it differently. I believe that we should appraise the property and sell it. The market is hot, to use that expression. I call it the skinny 16. It's a very specific piece of property. It's along the railroad tracks. It's adjacent across the street from an airport. It's north of Indian Street. And so a lot of the options that would be vetted out in a charrette don't, in my mind at least, don't really work there. So I would prefer that we appraise the property and put it out on the market immediately while we have the ability to free up those funds. I think the number that will eventually be paid for that property will make everyone very happy. The other issue that I brought up was assisting the Fair Association in some of their key cornerstone projects that need to happen out there. We've talked about bringing some utilities out from Indiantown. That's been strategized and is well underway. We talked about paving a driveway up from Citrus up to the center of the property for them. And then there was also some Citrus Boulevard turn lanes and center turning lane issues that needed to be addressed. Some of the proceeds of that sale. Now remember, the fair could have stayed on the property for at least through their lease, which if I'm not mistaken is approximately another 7 years. So freeing up that property for us to sell would be, in my mind, an excellent opportunity for us. And whatever is put on that property after it's sold, that property goes back onto the tax rolls. It is an excellent piece of property for a commercial, industrial type of situation. So with all due respect to my friends at the Regional Planning Council, I'd like to see that charrette idea be used on some other locations within the county. I think it's a strong idea where there'll be a lot of community involvement. There are not a lot of communities adjacent to the fairground property, so I don't know who necessarily are the stakeholders in a charrette, other than just people that are interested in giving their opinions of what the county should be doing on that property. There are not a lot of immediate adjacent stakeholders. So my recommendation would be that we appraise the property and market it for sale. Thank you, sir.
I disagree with you completely. It's a very unique piece of property that could have an amazing amount of different uses for us as county or other things, and is well deserving of somebody exploring those possibilities. They don't make it anymore. Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, a couple thoughts. For a long time, for all the time I've been here, we've talked about what if and when if the fair would move, what would happen to the property, and so on. And I think a couple thoughts about it. One, Ed mentioned, the airport has changed and has dynamically kind of shifted in terms of job creation and what goes on at the airport. And it's been a wildly successful last 20 years relative to what could have happened, what ended up happening, and where we have positioned ourselves with the airport. So its immediate neighborhood, the airport, has a direct impact, I think, on the fairground property because there is an intrinsic link between the two with the separation of A1A. I've always thought one of the more interesting aspects of the property itself is that it's located really smack in the middle of two of our northern connector roads in Martin County, A1A to the east, US 1 to the west, and two of our more dynamic connections east and west, Monterey Road and Indian Street. And so if you think of the confluence of all the traffic, all the people that come and go through that grid, you really are pretty much at the center of people's transportation routes, if you will, through the middle portion of our county, which again, I think puts it in a very unique position to have a whole myriad of different ideas. And I think that's part of the issue that I think it's up to us, I think it should be up to us anyway as a county, to think about what the future of that corridor and that property looks like versus, and Ed, look, I'm perfectly, fair enough you have your opinion. I disagree. I think putting it out for sale and just letting the highest bidder take the property and do with it what they will, I think misses an opportunity for us to really kind of set the tone and the theme for that corridor for the next 20 or 30 years. You have the exciting stuff that's gone on at the airport that certainly will have, I think, at least a discussion point. You have Virgin trains that will be going right through its western edge. We don't still know completely where and what the train station issue discussion, whether it goes in downtown Stewart or it doesn't. I don't know that decision's been made yet. I think that has to get looked at. I think you want to sort of make sure that all of those different types of pieces would play into that. On the western side, you have some really interesting opportunities, and again, who knows where the next 20 or 30 years goes with the B&A flea market. There's commercial property on the US 1 side of the railroad tracks that certainly may or may not have a role in all this. You have a redevelopment area that sits smack on its southern boundary. So given the transportation issues, given the proximity to the airport, to the western side of the US 1 corridor, the east-west connectors, and the city of Stewart, quite frankly. I mean, there's kind of a U-shaped piece of land on the western side that's partially in the city and partially in the county. I think the city is one of our bigger partners in the discussion and certainly the observation of what could and might happen with that whole part of our community. And so, the discussion of whether or not to hold off and see what the market's doing and what COVID is doing in the first of the year may not be such a bad idea. Dana, it'd be interesting to kind of hear from you what your thoughts are on that. Whether we do it today or we start in January, I think it's imperative that the market study piece of this gets done so we really have the best information to work with on our side of the equation, no matter how it ends up getting divided, whether we decide how it gets developed or a private group decides how it gets developed. We should absolutely know what the value is and the value to the future, not just today what the property value might be worth from an appraisal that someone says, yeah, it's worth X amount of $1 million today. But if it's developed in such a strategy that it really does take into consider its location relative to all the goings back and forth between Martin County, that may play a significantly different role. And that's the kind of stuff I really would like to see and understand and know before I make a decision on how and where we go with the property. It may not be such a bad idea to wait until we're a little bit past this, the pandemic issue and that the economy settles down, if that's such a thing. Clearly we have national elections going on and that probably has the economy doing all sorts of different things as well. So maybe after the elections may not be such a bad idea, that things will hopefully have settled down some and go into it with a sort of hopefully a new healthier year. But I still think it's super important that we do this because it is such a significant piece of property, and I think it can play a role in the redevelopment of that whole part of our community. So those are just some thoughts, and I think that the opportunities are interesting, and I think for our community as a whole to participate but also fully understand where we might be going with this whole thing, I think would be helpful. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Dana, he asked for your opinion on what you're...
Thank you very much. We're having this conversation with a lot of different cities and counties that we're working with, where there's been an interest in doing a market analysis to understand, so that any recommendations that we provide you or provide a city are grounded in economic truths. The out-of-town consultants that we're talking about, we've worked with for years, and they're experts at doing, the sort of detailed back-of-house analysis, backroom analyses. I mentioned and I'm with Tom Lanahan, who's our executive director from the Regional Planning Council. When we met with each of you, I think I mentioned to all of you, or at least a few of you, we actually completed an agreement a week or so ago with the Village of Wellington in Palm Beach County, and they have a very similar scope, or asked us for a very similar scope. And the same issue came up, we really feel that, and we're looking at the corridor of State Road 7, but also the mall at Wellington Green, which has had some challenges over the years. And they voiced that, they think it's vital that we do the market analyses. It's very important to do that, but also concerned about the uncertainty of what's happening with our economy, with the pandemic, et cetera. So what we did is there's the front end of the market study, which won't change. That's based upon data and analyses up till December of 2019. So it's not affected by the pandemic. And that's essential base work that this team would do. It's basically creating the economic profile of the county and the area specific. What are the existing jobs up to that date? What are the leakages of different retail or commercial types? Where are you overloaded with certain retail or commercial types? What is the sort of fair share of that of the county's percentages of growth potential for that site versus the areas around it? What are the existing expendable incomes within the area. All of that data and analysis is essential to go to the next step, which is to start to project what are viable and supportable uses in a development program going forward. So just as a recent example in the town of Wellington, they've said, well, let's do this. Let's start with that bit that isn't affected by COVID, that's essential work to be done. And then we'll see where we are at that point. That's going to take 4 or 5 months. And this is what's worked for Wellington. I'm not saying it would work necessarily for Martin County. And by the way, they've committed to the overall project. But if it reaches a point where there's still a degree of uncertainty about the economy, we can hit the pause button between that first phase and the second phase and wait and see what happens. In fact, that's happened with a couple of our projects, because of the inability to have face-to-face public meetings. We've had a handful of projects put on hold. So we're sensitive to that for sure, about the timing and the wisdom of moving too fast into a market analysis, a market study, when there's still some uncertainty. But I bring up Wellington as an example of what another local government is doing within our region, and so that they've got some assurances that if they feel the need to take a pause, that they can do so, but they haven't lost time in doing the work that's the base work that's essential, that isn't affected by the COVID pandemic. So I don't know if that adequately addresses your thoughts and concerns, but we're prepared to tailor. If there's a desire to move forward with this or any part of this, we're prepared to tailor it to the needs of the county and the concerns of the county for sure.
Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, 2 things. One, if there was any public, I'd just be curious what they had to say. And number 2, if there wasn't, I would make a motion. So I didn't know if there was any public or not.
We don't have any public speaker forums on this subject.
Okay. I'll try a motion to see what you all think about this. I was listening very carefully with Stacy and her thoughts about this, and I kind of blended together Dana's thought where there's still background work that needs to be done. And so I would move that we proceed with an agreement with the Regional Planning Council that the first phase of work would start on the background work that Dana laid out, and as I understand it. And then that would hopefully take us through to perhaps the first of the year, or at least I would suggest that we take it to the first of the year so we can reassess where we are, both with that data at that point and where we are with the economy, the pandemic, the election cycle hopefully being over, and that then we would come back with an analysis. And I'm suggesting that we do the whole project, Dana, but that we start with like a phase 1, and that if we get into January and things have changed dramatically, we can reassess and you can reposition us in such a way that you said, look, as a result of where we are, we recommend doing this and this next versus what we had talked about back in July and August. So I know it's a little long-winded and a little open-ended, but I think doing the project's important, but I think the timing is equally critical relative to where we are. So I would suggest that the first phase get done, but then we do hit that pause button sometime January and come back and have another discussion in January relative to those sequential phases. That would be my motion, Mary Kay, if that all makes sense.
I think we bring this up. Yeah, I want to talk now. Just the money part of it. At this point, we don't know what's going to happen. So pausing the whole thing till after the first of the year, I don't believe is the end of the world. So, Commissioner Hetherington.
I was just going to ask a couple questions in relation to your phasing, because I do think that we need to wait till the beginning of the year to do the economic portion of it. And even the charrettes, I find that, and we've done a good job doing some of the virtual ones, but it certainly would be, I think, more productive to do those in person if the timing allowed. And so if you were going to do a phasing, you would then say you would be looking at the land uses and based on your scope, basically the land uses, and maybe you could explain if it was phased out, what potentially you would recommend.
So what we would do, I mentioned the background economic profile work that the economists would have to develop anyway, assuming that we use that team that we're familiar with. There's also due diligence that we would have to do, pulling together the existing land use, the land use information, zoning information, ownership information, that sort of thing. We could go through an interview process, which we've been doing virtually already. And that could take us through the first phase, begin preparing for what would ultimately be, hopefully, an in-person charrette type of process. And trust me, we much prefer an in-person charrette process. It's infinitely better. The second phase, when we felt comfortable that, say, the pandemic had stabilized or hopefully dropped off, and that the experts in the field of local and regional economies felt comfortable that things had started to stabilize, restaurants were starting to fill up again, and we decided to move forward. That would be the charrette process, as well as the development of, this would be phase 2, the development of the projected supportable uses. There's a series of different categories that they would look at: hospitality, retail, office commercial, residential, industrial. What is the various categories of potential uses? And is there a market in the foreseeable future to support any or all of these? I think personally and professionally, I think that part of it would be very, very useful. Whether you do the charrette and the design stuff at all, it would be very useful for you as a board to know what is supportable on that site, so that when you're negotiating a sale potentially, you know what the value is. You can't be told, well, something is not really supportable here, but in fact you know that it is, which could impact your willingness to sell or the price at which you sell. But say we stayed on track, the team of the economists in the second phase would develop what they see the projections being. We believe that in the next 5 to 10 years you can support 250 units of housing on this site, or you can't support any housing on the site. We believe that you can support 1.5 million square feet of industrial, or light industrial, or commercial, whatever that mix might be. And that is a grounded, a development program or a projection that's grounded in economic realities based upon their analysis. The phase after that would be, okay, we take that information and then we start to do design for the site. This is how it's laid out in the proposal. And then the economists would actually do a feasibility analysis on those designs to say, okay, if you were to do 250 units of housing on this, the yield and what the price points potentially could be, the county could reasonably sell this at X amount of dollars, or have a long-term ground lease, or whatever that arrangement might be. And you can expect this in economic impacts in terms of additional tax revenues, that sort of thing. And what we have in our proposal is test 3 different scenarios. And actually do a mini pro forma, if you will, for each of those, so that you, again, as a body, have a lot of ammunition to help you decide what your choices are going to be, because it could just be a sale, it could be a long-term ground lease, it could be a sale contingent upon certain development, so that's the way that's structured. I foresee this being, and this is similar to the Wellington proposal that I mentioned, in probably 3 phases. And like I said, Wellington's committed to the whole thing, but it's just an opportunity for them to say, okay, well, we want to take a break here, or we want to take a break there, God forbid if there's another spike or something else. And they felt it important to move forward, because when we get through all of this, which we will, they want to be prepared and not have lost any time in this whole effort, that they're prepared. Wellington is a unique situation. I won't blather on about that, but they've got a tremendous amount of growth that's proposed or is happening around them. And, there are sort of glacial shifts that are happening in western Palm Beach County that they want to make sure that they're leveraged and positioned for in the future. This is slightly different, of a different scale, but you wouldn't lose any time in that sense, having to start maybe a year and a half from now or a year from now. I can, of course, speak to the relationship of the Fair Association and what's happening with them and when they may vacate. So that will probably, work into the timing factor as well. And to the best of our ability, we can put together a proposal that is phased and ready to go when you as a body feels that it's time to start.
Do we have an update from the Fair Association, George? And I appreciate the way that you explained that phased out. I still think that almost we should push it to January to start, because some of those phases could coincide with each other. Is that true?
Often they do.
Okay.
Yes. We've never done this before with this team where we've phased it like this. We've never had to, because a lot of times, you're right, some of that happens simultaneously, but we stretched it out intentionally.
And I really liked that. More than an appraisal, it gives a long-range planning snapshot, and I think it gives us a lot of information so that I do think that likely we should sell it, but I would rather have all that more information so we can properly market it.
If I may, to Commissioner Smith's point, the proposal looks at a half-mile radius, an area of a half-mile radius about the intersection of Dixie and Indian Street. So we would be looking at, adjacent parcels and connectivity and opportunities and constraints within the entire area. So it's not it is focused on the site, but it's a broader look than just the site itself, the 16 acres.
And Commissioner, to answer your question to me, I did not ask the Fair Association for an update. The board item really is dealing with where staff is with various work items that we're working on with the fair, but they are present today, and we're more than happy if you want to invite them to discuss anything. But I did not reach out to them.
It just depends on their timeline, so I could certainly get that from them.
Commissioner Hurd.
Yes, so far we've seen the pandemic globally has caused a seismic shift in residential needs, and that's not going to change. People's needs or wants today for residential housing is very different than it was 6 months ago, and I don't foresee that that's going to change. And also, I suspect that the retail needs and commercial and office needs are going to change. And I particularly think that office is going to be less predictable. I think that now people we're still in the early phases of I'm very productive and happy working at home. That's not going to last. That's going to change, and people are going to be returning to offices. So I don't want to be planning for 6 months down the road when we need to be planning for 2 years down the road, because those changes are going to occur. I think that I don't want to sell ourselves short and come up with an inadequate plan. So I would make a motion that we postpone this and bring it back the first of the year.
I would concur. The other planets that have to align is Jay's efforts with the Fairgrounds. And right now, I've spoken to him many times of the challenges that he's going through. He had, some commitments prior to that are reluctant now because they are unsure of their economic future. So I just think after the first of the year, we should be having this conversation. So we already have a motion on the floor that did not get a second. So it's dead. We have a motion by Commissioner.
So, Commissioner Hurd, your motion is to bring the item back and discuss it, not to start the study in
That's correct.
January. I'll second that.
You'll second that? Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Hurd, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 4-1. Commissioner Campy dissenting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we probably do need to have a item to discuss the fair side of this soon.
Sooner.
Agreed.
Thank you. Commissioner Campy.
Thank you. So soon that I'd like to mention it while we're here, and the gentlemen from the Fair Association are here, and the players that are with their legal department are here. I have also been having conversations with the representatives of the Fair Association, and I know that our team in legal has worked very diligently on crafting language and back and forth for a long time. But I think, and I agree with some of the comments that I've heard from the association, which is that it is very difficult. Yes, the current environment is difficult, but a lot of the people that are willing to invest larger quantities in something like a fair, a county fair, which this, I will say, and maybe we can bring Mr. Spicer up to give us an update, has morphed into more than what the traditional county fair or the existing county fair is. They have been limited in their scope based on the size of the property and how many people they could draw to this location purely amongst the parking restrictions. They can't have all of these events. They don't have places for people to park in such a defined and enclosed location in our community. I think that we need to work diligently with their, and I know we have, but I'm asking Ms. Woods as our attorney, and I hold her in the highest regard. I want to finalize the lease purely because if I was an investor trying to put money up for this association, I would not be taking the association seriously until they had a executed lease in their hand. I know that the options and things like that are helpful, but if I'm going to write a check for $1 million or more, I'm not doing it with a couple of gentlemen that are still in the process of negotiating the lease. They don't have, I don't know many people that would. They don't have an executed instrument that would say, yes, we are on this property for X amount of time. The concept that they need to show $3 million up front, that's a challenge. I would prefer, and also to hear from my colleagues and from you, Ms. Woods, on what is necessary for us to have an executed lease that's reasonable under the new circumstances that we're in during a pandemic. Because without an executed lease, I don't believe they can take advantage of the opportunities that are being presented to them. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but when I have conversations with them, I wouldn't write a check as a donation or a contribution or an investment in a property that the people that are sitting across the table from me are not legally in a position to negotiate. Thank you.
Well, I guess we don't need a board item because we're going to discuss that now.
Well, they're here.
Ms. Woods.
And time is of the essence. Deals are falling off the table every day.
Okay, be quiet.
I would, if I may, Sarah Woods, Martin County Attorney, I would somewhat disagree with you, Commissioner Campy. I believe, and we've done this in the past, this is a lease option. And so the lease actually is attached to the option. The option makes it very clear, and I apologize, I don't have it in front of me. I didn't know we were going to go through this, but the lease sets forth, or the option, excuse me, exactly what milestones the Fair Association has to hit in order to get the lease. It is entirely within the ability of the Fair Association to get that lease. This, as you may recall, is almost exactly the same situation we were in many years ago when the Children's Museum was, they had a lease option. We likewise had some little blips, I think economically, with fundraising and things, and so the option allowed us the flexibility, but at the same time, from a grant application as well as fundraising, the potential donors had an absolute assurance that if those milestones are met, there's a guarantee that they get a lease. So the lease is attached to that option. Any potential donors can look at that. They can see, I believe that it's pretty clear that it's all in the hands of the Fair Association for them to go forward with this. And again, we stand ready, as we did a few months ago, to do tweaking to allow them to get the lease.
I would agree with you in the Children's Museum, but the more I talk to Jay and the people that are involved with the fundraising part of the fair, it's the chicken and the egg. It's, they have potential donors that will, but if there's not an actual lease, that they don't have ground that's committed to them, they're having issue with. And maybe that is something that those potential donors need to talk to your team, and if we can do something that makes them more comfortable, that's maybe something we can do.
Certain, and I would say that when you look at the option, the one of the milestones is, having the fundraising in place. You don't have to have the money actually in your hand. You've got to have the commitment and the certification by their CPA. So, a potential commitment is also, or a commitment for that also allows them to meet the milestone.
And then those commitments would have strings attached the other way, then, that they have to meet these milestones to get there.
Yes, sir, but I'd be happy with owner-donor, or we could have Ms. Lenahan come and sit down with any potential donors to explain, the ins and outs of it. I know we've done that in the past. I know we did it with the Children's Museum when we applied for some grants for that system, and we were successful. And that's actually written into the option as well, of our strong commitment to assist the Fair Association to obtain the lease, and anything we can do during the option period to bring that forward.
Okay, well, I'd like to maybe sit down with the Fair Association again, with legal, and maybe even if they have a potential, I know they have some pretty serious commitments that they'd like to be involved with it, and maybe they could also be involved, so everybody gets a little more comfortable than they are now. Commissioner Camping.
Thank you, sir. We started this process when I first came back into office, which was in 2016. We're 4 years in, and I'm disappointed that it has taken this long. I know that we have knocked a lot of issues down, but I think most lay people that are not, putting contracts and leases together on a daily basis would be surprised that it's taken this long. I know that one of the things that I would find difficult if I was part of the association is the number that the commitment dollar amount that they were held responsible to a year ago. We've heard Commissioner Hurd very accurately say that every couple of months the landscape has changed dramatically, and I think that some of the requirements that seemed perfectly reasonable a couple years ago are no longer reasonable. I don't know why we haven't been able to go from option to executed lease. I have the ultimate confidence in you, Ms. Woods, and your team, but I've also had many, many meetings and phone conversations with the folks at the Fair Association. I don't know why it's this complicated. I'm at a point of frustration because we should be much further down the road with the capable people sitting at both sides of the table. I've sat in some of those meetings with you all to try to facilitate some direction, and I still feel that we've created a situation, and with all due respect, the Children's Museum is a single building on a pre-developed piece of property with unified parking. The utilities are all there, and it's just a matter of several $1 million. The Fairground is 110 acres in the middle of nowhere that everything needs to be brought to it. So I get that the concept in the lease is similar, but the actuality of the circumstances are completely different. Everything is big, everything takes a tremendous amount of time, everything's expensive. Mr. Donaldson and I had a meeting with Joe Capra and Jeff Leslie from the Indiantown Company and the folks from the fair. It was probably 8 of us around the table just to try to figure out how do you bring the utilities out. And then we'd have to have conversations with how do you bring the road work. So the concept of a lease for a building at Indian Riverside Park is much more compact and easy to define. This is a gigantic project, which is also exciting. But I would not be writing checks, and I hear what you're saying, but obviously they've tried the option without an executed lease. And with all due respect, I think Ms. Lanahan is an excellent attorney, but I don't know if they're going to have a meeting with let's just use an example, Coca-Cola, that it would be Mrs. Lanahan's responsibility on our behalf to participate in that meeting. I don't know if the Fair Association would want her at that meeting. What they would like is, here is the lease. It's executed. It's been nearly 4 years. I would like to set a time certain that we lock this lease down. If $3 million, where they have to show $3 million up front, is a bridge too far, then as a board, we should have the opportunity to alter that number, because I just want the lease to be completed.
I would like to perhaps set forth some facts. The numbers that are in the option are from the fair. They were represented by Terry McCarthy. Those came from, and I'm looking at, those development numbers were something that the fair gave to us and we incorporated in the option. I haven't personally been contacted by the fair. I don't believe Ms. Lenahan has either. We're happy to take this back as staff and bring something back to you by the board, but no one's talked to me about these issues. And again, these were their numbers that they requested be laid
But
in.
when did they request them? Long time ago?
When we filed the...
If I may, Elizabeth Lenahan, County Attorney's Office. So when we have done options in the past with other entities, options to lease for county property, one of the requirements that the lessee must show is that they have the financial wherewithal to complete the project that they have proposed. What we did with the Fair Association, understanding the gravity and magnitude of the project that they were proposing, is to require that they show the financial wherewithal to perform the first phase of development of the property, which included very certain things that have to be done within the first 5 years of the lease. They are for the office building, restrooms available to the public, and for the livestock arena, basically, the show space. And those were the requirements. The numbers that they got, as Mrs. Wood said, were from their team of engineers and developers, that what that number would come up to. So we felt that we had come to a good place. The Fair Association agreed that that was reasonable to require that first phase worth of funding to get the lease. Last month, I think it was, the board authorized an extension of the option to give the Fair Association to November of 2022 to do that fundraising. So that's the update of where we are with and that's all that I've heard on the fundraising side.
Thank you. Mr. Spicer, Mr. Chair, we do have representatives. Mr. Spicer, Mr. Edwards, this is your opportunity to speak to the five of us all at the same time.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Jay Spicer for the Martin County Fair. We sincerely appreciate everything everyone's done to this point. It's been Herculean. We started this process even before Mr. Campy came on board, when we were noodling through the issues we have with the current fairgrounds. Our issue is really not so much in the process that we've agreed to or the way this was rolling out. The challenge for us at the moment is, even with the extension, we are going to try to raise $3 million in 1 year. The hospital can't even raise that kind of money. And a lot of that is a 5-year commitment. So our question was simply, why do we got to have 5 years worth of money before we get started? If we can find a way to have something concrete that we can say, look, we are in it, it is official, we are moving forward. Here's photos of the tractors on the ground pushing the dirt. Here's the first building under construction. We need your check to finish that pavilion, sir. Boom. It's this whole thing. 30 years they've been talking about moving this place, and people are skeptical, even still excited, but with hesitation on whether this is going to happen at all. A lot of disappointment in the community, because it's like, oh, I'm starting to wear thin on this myself, and I put this whole thing together. But it's just, how do we get the money? It's a lot of money, and that $3 million at the beginning is just the beginning. But when we get that RV park open, we get that amphitheater going, there's revenue that will be coming in to help us continue to build with or without other funding. At the moment, the Department of Agricultural grant is due in October. This is the 3rd year I'm going to have to pass on it because I don't even have an address to apply it to. It'd be the first one chopped on the block. We've got the mitigation grants, and I'm a part of the mitigation commission thing that we have over here with LMS. There's money from Hurricane Michael for our hurricane-rated animal stalls and the expo center for animal shelter or public shelter, whatever we want to build. But all that money is just going to wash right on by because we're not even going to be in consideration because we don't have an official project to apply it to. And that's all we were asking for, is to try to figure out a way that we can say, we're ready to go. Let's get some money in here. We've contacted Town of Jupiter. A lot of the folks down there that typically contribute to projects are away because of the COVID situation. And the ones that are here are locked up in their homes, and they're not coming out for a lunch meeting or a shaking hands and getting to know us opportunity. So we're like struggling on, what do we do? Where are we going to come up with $3 million in 1 year without any kind of solid support?
Commissioner Smith?
I didn't, was that it with Jay, or did?
I don't know.
I had one question for Jay, but
It wasn't really a question for Jay, it was just a comment when they're done. When the
Okay,
public's
hold
done.
on. Let Mr. Campy ask his
Mr.
question.
Spicer, thank you for that, but what would you say is the biggest holdup from your side's perspective on getting this thing done? Is it just what you said, I heard what Ms. Lanahan said about a 5-year commitment. That sounds reasonable to me, that we would expect you to show certain progress within the first 5 years. However, you're saying the price tag for that 5 years worth of progress, you have to show it up front. So it's
Up front.
genuinely not 5 years. The funding to do the 5 years worth of work, you're looking to show up front. That's what is the requirement. And Ms. Woods is right here, so
Yes.
this is great that everyone can hear and respond.
I believe the exact language of the option is, it's not so that we have the money in the account, that we can certify that we have, there's signed letters of commitment, there are grants and other funding opportunities that are there. But like I just said, we're not going to get any grants to apply to that.
So knowing that you could do it on commitments, are you feeling that that is not an option because people won't commit without the lease? What, I don't understand, as we heard, the chicken and the egg thing. It seems like it should be easy enough to figure this out. We have great minds on our side that are very capable. You're represented by an excellent local attorney that we're all familiar with, Mr. McCarthy. So I don't understand how our top-notch legal department and Mr. McCarthy, and we haven't figured it out yet. So I think somewhere in the mix is where there's a disconnect. We just have to figure out where it is, because maybe after that, we just start smooth sailing.
Ms. Woods?
I just want to point something out. I'm a little confused, and I'm happy to assist the Fair Association, but I don't know any reason why the Fair Association couldn't apply for grants based on that option. That option that was designed in order to support the grants, and the county, through that option, is committed to also support those grants for that. That was the whole point of it. We talked extensively with the Fair Association's legal counsel. So if there's some confusion about that, I've had a long career, and we've used these options in order to obtain state grants at various facilities, and we'd be happy and stand ready to assist Mr. Spicer with obtaining those grants.
Well, I would count that as the second issue on the table. The first issue is, how do you get to a lease? What do we need to do?
Harold. It's making me nuts.
Stacy?
No, it was Commissioner Smith. My question was going to be on what was preventing them applying for grants, but what
I don't know of anything.
Sarah Woods just said is that this option allows them to apply for grants.
Yes, ma'am.
Sure sounds like everybody needs to sit around our table and work this out.
Yes.
Rather than us debating all this here. Yes, sir.
That was going to be my recommendation. We are putting our staff at a ridiculous disadvantage to be able to have a conversation that this wasn't teed up to have a conversation this morning. Like, I would much rather next meeting put an agenda item on, get some time to meet with Terry. I haven't talked to the fair in months. I haven't talked to our staff in months about all the particulars. And if there's something that's missing, I would much rather have everybody on both sides fully prepared to talk about it than what we're doing right now, which is testing everybody's knowledge as to when, what, how, where, and why. I don't think we're doing, I mean, Ed, I understand your sense of urgency. We all have that similar sense of urgency, but I don't think this is the right way to do it this morning. I'm more than supportive having the very next meeting have an agenda item, but give staff and us the time to meet with folks and talk about what everybody's concerns are, so at least we're all talking from the same page. I'm not, I wouldn't be prepared to make a motion or vote on a motion today, because I just don't think it's fair to our staff to be put in that position not to be able to say, I can recommend what you're asking, and I think this all makes sense. If we can talk through the issues, and if the fair is supportive of doing something and staff is great, I would much rather have that kind of recommendation come forward than us haggling through something today without even the background to understand what we're trying to do. That's just my 2 cents.
So,
Thank you. Mr. Chair, may I just respond to that, please?
I was going to say something, but go ahead.
Just to respond. I didn't ask anybody to come this morning. This was discussed as part of the agenda. The gentleman from the fair and Mr. Stokas came forward. I thought we were going to have an agenda item on the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council's strategy on what we wanted to do with the existing fairground. When Mr. Stokas said, hey, but we can also, there's a couple other issues that we can discuss, and they're here. I'm not trying to do a gotcha moment on staff. I don't like when that happens. I had no intention of making any motions. But when all of the players in the room and we're half talking about it, I just wanted to get some clarity. I was not attempting at all to push our staff into an uncomfortable position. This is what I heard. This is not even my commissioner comments. I just am discussing it since everyone was here. I agree with you, Commissioner Smith. We can't just throw it out there and see what happens.
So, Ms. Woods and Mr. Spicer, can you get your staffs together and come up with some, and identify some areas to where we can actually help move this forward by next commission meeting?
That would be our hope.
Yes, please. Yeah, that'd be
I
great.
was shaking your head no and saying yes at the same time.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just turned my head.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. I wasn't meaning no.
Going no and
I was
saying
looking
yes, okay.
at him. Sorry.
All right. Okay, so with that, I think we're good.
Thank you very much.
All right, and with that, it is 10:30 on the dot. We will be taking our closed captioning break at this time. Thank you.
You are muted. especially, I'll let her talk a little bit more, but public assistance is a big part of it, and we know that that's a challenge for us every time that we're impacted by a storm. So.
Great, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be working for Martin County now. I should be starting around August 10th, unless you have that storm first. I might come a little earlier.
No.
Like Chief Schobel said, I have a lot of experience in emergency management and emergency medical services. I actually took on public assistance during Hurricane Irma. We had a $48 million claim, which went pretty well, and also the Dorian claim. So I've learned a lot about public assistance and CARES funding. So really looking forward to bringing that experience with me here. So
Great.
Thank you.
Welcome. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Looking forward to working with you. Yeah. Okay. Now we'll work our way to public hearing number 1, legislative public hearing to consider transmittal of comprehensive plan amendment 19-27, Port Salerno future land use map. Miss Irene Settlemeyer.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of County Commissioners. Irene Settlemeyer, planner with the Growth Management Department. So this agenda item is the transmittal public hearing for the amendment of the future land use map to assign the CRA Center and the CRA Neighborhood future land use designations to the Port Salerno CRA. And assuming that the board agrees to transmit this amendment, it will return to you for the adoption public hearing in September. So on the screen is an image of showing the location of the Port Salerno CRA. You know, it's east of US 1 on the Manatee Pocket. This is a closer view of the land area that will be affected by this future land use map. You can see some of the larger stormwater retention areas, Manatee Creek, the elementary school, the middle school. So on the screen now is the current future land use map on the left and the proposed future land use map on the right. They're from pages 124 and 125 of the agenda materials. The current future land use map shows the predominance of the medium density residential future land use, which is the red. You can also see the low density residential future land use, the marigold, and this pale peach color is the estate density residential, and pink is mobile home future land use. You have the marine commercial waterfront, marine waterfront commercial future land use, which is this blue along this segment of the pocket. And you have purple is commercial office residential. This is the violet is limited commercial. This pale lilac is general commercial. The dark green is recreational. Industrial is yellow. And from the comparison between the existing map and the proposed map, you can see that the marine waterfront commercial future land use is retained along the waterfront properties that have that, and the Port Salerno Industrial Park retains its industrial future land use. So here is again the existing future land use map on the left with the mixed use future land use overlay shown in green with the proposed future land use on the right. And this shows that the mixed use future land use overlay along Salerno Road and Cove Road, along the waterfront, along Dixie Highway, and the CRA Center, which is this rose color, follows the mixed-use future land use overlay, with the exception of the marine waterfront commercial, retains that future land use designation. The CRA center, the CRA neighborhood future land use is this coffee color, and it's assigned to the areas outside the mixed-use core and the mixed-use corridors, and the residential estate density, the mobile home density, the medium density residential, the low density residential, all become CRA neighborhood. The distinctive development standards for the different neighborhoods are provided in the land development regulations. The general institutional future land use is assigned to county-owned properties that are used for stormwater detention and treatment, as well as to the Port Salerno Elementary School and the Murray Middle School, and a couple other, the two cemeteries in Port Salerno received the general institutional future land use designation. So this verbal presentation is just a brief summary of the more detailed staff report that you received. The staff report identifies the many public hearings and public meetings that have occurred regarding the update of the future land use map for the CRAs, and the agenda materials also identify the public notice that has occurred. In addition to the posted signs and the published advertisement, notice of the public hearing was mailed to some 4,700 owners of property within the CRA and within 1,000 feet of the CRA. The Port Salerno Neighborhood Advisory Committee, the board of the Community Redevelopment Agency, and the local planning agency have all recommended approval of this proposed amendment. Staff recommends that the board approve the transmittal of CPA 1927 to the state and regional reviewing agencies. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for staff? Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, I'm looking at the map, and I'm looking at CRA Center, and CRA Center has been and should be the CRA Center. But in this case, it's all over the place. Parcels aren't connected to one another. It's illogical. It seems to be capricious. It's not centralized at all. So what's the goal of the CRA Center when you've got these parcels not linked at all, spread throughout the CRA in a rather haphazard fashion?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is that one of the overall goals in the new future land use map was to not take away uses or development that would be permitted now. We did not want to be challenged on for taking away development rights that property owners have now. And because in these mixed-use future land use overlays, property owners, and through here, all the mixed-use future land use overlay, the property owners are permitted to do mixed-use development, which includes both residential and commercial. The CRA Center similarly allows both residential and commercial. And these corridors are, important corridors, so the kind of feel and the kind of development intensity and the types of uses for those corridors is appropriate, that the CRA Center permits.
And the general institutional land uses, I recognize some of them. What's the one in the center, the long one in the center? No,
here,
go to the west. That's
the big lagoon or the big pond. Salerno Basin, is it called? Here, it's Salerno Basin.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, we have two public comments on this. We'll begin with Mr. Ted Estolfi.
Good morning, I'm Ted Estolfi. I'm CEO of the Economic Council of Martin County, and as I have in all these CRA hearings. I'm here again to offer our support for this text amendment, comp plan amendment, and the new code and overlay. This is just one more step in making our community redevelopment areas vibrant, fresh communities that are going to be responsive to what the community neighborhood advisory committee members and others in the community have asked for, and to stimulate what we really need to see happen in these neighborhoods. And again, as you can tell by my mask, CRAs are great at creating areas for people to stay, shop, and buy local. And so we're totally supportive of this, and thank you.
And where can one get such a mask?
Actually, C&W Technologies has these for free if you want to go by and pick one up.
Cool.
10,000 people are on their way there.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Next up, Mr. Bob Raines.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Bob Raines. I'm here this morning representing Richard Schultz, who has property located on Mulford Street, which is just a couple of lots down from the Pirates Cove. Mr. Schultz received the letter regarding today's transmittal hearing and the proposed land use change. He retained Morris Crady and I to review this change and to make sure that everything was all right. He currently has operating there an existing dock that is legally approved by the DEP to lease out to other vessels. And so he is concerned about a land use that will allow him to continue to have his dock there and lease it out. So that's our concern right now. What is being proposed doesn't appear to allow that dock to continue to operate. However, we have been working with your staff who has listened to our concerns, and we're trying to work through a way to keep that use recognized. So we do have concerns with what's being transmitted, but I think between now and we'll continue to work. If we don't come to some way to skin the cat, we may be looking at requesting a change to something that will allow that when we get to adoption, because the commercial waterfront would address that issue. But in talking with staff, they have some concerns with respect to that, which we understand. But so we'll continue to work with them, hopefully come up with a way to do it. But we're asking you to please recognize that existing use right now with the commercial docks. Thank you. We'll be glad to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Commissioner Smith.
Is that it on public?
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I would move staff's recommendation, and also just an understanding that, I mean, I guess it would be good to hear from Irene or from staff that what Mr. Raines brings up will be something that we can consider upon adoption when this comes back.
Yes, in the next presentation on the land development regulations, we'll discuss that. We are proposing CRA Center for this particular property that Mr. Raines is speaking about, the CRA Center, which is consistent with the mixed-use future land use overlay, and the general zoning subdistrict, which is part of the land development regulations, and I'll speak to that further in that agenda item.
So,
but yes, I hear what you're saying.
So I just want to be clear. So effectively what we're doing with the land use transmittal, if there is something that has to change in the language of the land use after it's gone for review and after we have the next conversation, that'll be able to be dealt with upon adoption if we need to.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Then I would move staff's recommendation.
Apparently Ms. Corres has something.
Yes, Susan Corres, Manager, Office of Community Development. I just wanted to respond as well to Commissioner Smith and say that we would like to handle the change for Mr. Schultz, or the solution for Mr. Schultz, through the land development regulations, not through the future land use. So we would like that to be transmitted today.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that there was no conflict between the land use that we're doing.
Yeah.
And clearly we'll have this conversation in the next conversation.
Yeah, we believe that there's other solutions.
I want to second
Thank you.
I would second that motion.
Okay. Any other comments? With seeing none, we have a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries 4-1. Commissioner Hurd dissenting. Next is public hearing quasi-judicial number 1. First public hearing to consider the ordinance establishing Division 6, Port Salerno Community Redevelopment Code, and Article 12, LDR, amending the zoning atlas. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, so do we have any ex parte communications, Commissioner Smith?
I do, and they'll be filed.
Commissioner Heatherton?
If any, they've been filed.
I have some, and they've been filed. Commissioner Campy?
I have some, and they've been filed.
Commissioner Hurd?
If I have any, they've been filed.
Okay, anybody offering testimony, please stand to be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Are there any return receipts to be turned in? No? Yes? No?
Yeah, she has the packet.
Well, you need to just put on the Krista Story County Attorney's Office, as part of the agenda packet, you've included the necessary letters that have notified the surrounding property owners regarding this matter.
Yes.
Correct?
That's in my, yes.
Okay, well, since he asked the question, it would be good to put it on the record now. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, and you've submitted a copy of the agenda and your work history.
Yes.
Any interveners? Seeing none, please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Susan Cora's Office of Community Development. We're here to continue to proceed under the recently effective Article 12, Division 1, where we require only one ordinance for the adoption of the land development regulations and the amendment of the zoning atlas. So this one item reviews both the proposed adoption of Article 12, Division 6, Port Salerno Redevelopment Code, and the proposed amendment of the zoning atlas to assign the Port Salerno Redevelopment Zoning District. As was said, staff report was prepared by Irene Settlemyer, Planner Growth Management, and the agenda packet does include a copy of our work history as well as documentation of public notice. The public was noticed via community signage, advertisement in the paper. Over 4,000 letters were mailed to residents and businesses within the CRA boundary and 1,000 feet outside the boundary. Presenting this item for us today is Mr. Dana Little, Urban Design Director of the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, and we have Martin County Growth Management staff and legal staff here as well to offer any expertise or answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Little, welcome back.
Good morning. Thank you. Dana Little, Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. We're very excited here to be at our first public hearing and transmittal hearing for the future land use map amendment for Port Salerno CRA area. This was already presented to you, but this ordinance is to establish Division 6 of Article 12, Port Salerno Community Redevelopment Code. As I've presented to you before, this effort kicked off in August of 2018. Each of these yellow dates that you see up here were adoption dates. So it was September of 2019 where we adopted Jensen Beach, and CPA 1913, which was the future land use map and the creation of Chapter 18 of the comprehensive plan. Rio was adopted on December 17th, Old Palm City was adopted in May, and Hope Sound was adopted on June 16th. And thanks to Martin County staff, all of you, for establishing a forum in which we can continue to do this work, because we've been able to lose very little time. I'll point that out in a moment. Through this effort to date, we've had 41 public meetings, 21 of which have been evening meetings, and we've done, I think, 109, 110 individual interviews with residents, community members, and business owners. And you'll recall the total time frame for this, the timeline is 24 months, and we are rounding out this entire effort. Here we are in July. As I mentioned, we did lose about 2 months with public meetings, NAC meetings, CRA meetings, due to the pandemic in its early stages, but thanks again to county staff and leadership for creating a forum which we can continue our work. Here we are today. This is our favorite schedule to look at. This is the adoption schedule. All of the green boxes are completed adoption hearings. You see each of the CRAs has a column Hobe Sound here was adopted on June 16th. Here we are at Port Salerno. Today's date, the 28th. We're at the BCC transmittal hearing. And then we'll be back to see you, hopefully, on September 15th for the adoption, once we've had review from DEO, and we'll come back for the second public hearing for adoption of this code. We were at the Golden Gate CRA board yesterday, where we had a recommendation of approval to move forward, and you'll notice that after today there are only 4 more meetings for this entire effort. So we didn't think it was possible, but we're getting close to the end. In a nutshell, there are 3 major components to what it is we're doing. Irene Settlemyer just presented to you the future land use designations of CRA Center and CRA Neighborhood. To the extent as to just reiterate what Irene said, we've worked very hard to maintain existing development rights and entitlements without granting additional development rights and entitlements. And it's been sort of an interesting forensic process to go through the existing codes and the overlays and the future land use designations to arrive at what we're proposing to you today. And at the root of that is the elimination of the overlays. The overlays in the future land use map and in the LDRs has created confusion over time. So that was at the root of this entire effort. And then, of course, the rezoning of each of the CRA areas to its own CRA. So Port Salerno will become a single district, which would be Port Salerno CRA, except for a few of the institutional districts that will remain. And then the sub-districts, which we'll focus on today in the regulating plan, include core, general waterfront, industrial corridor, etc. All of this is rooted in the original vision plan from May of 2000 for Port Salerno, which was also revised and updated in 2009. As I've mentioned before, this was never an effort to go back and recast the vision of each of the CRAs, but really sharpen the tools that are available or fix the tools that are available to implement the vision. And that's kind of been the challenge over the years. You've seen this before. We created Chapter 18, which is a chapter dedicated to the CRAs within the comprehensive plan, and Article 12, which is the dedicated article or chapter, if you will, within the land development regulations that is also dedicated to the CRA. So these 2 new chapters are in sync with one another, and that was very important because that had not always been the case before. Chapter 18 was adopted in September of last year, and as Irene just pointed out, we went from the single future land use map and its overlays and have turned them into a single future land use map that has the center, and as Irene pointed out, in the coffee color is the CRA neighborhood. Article 12, the companion to this, is the article within the LDRs that's dedicated to the CRAs, and each one of those have been adopted individually, with Division 1 being the first one to be adopted. Within Article 12, what we're doing is taking the existing zoning map and the zoning overlay districts and combining them into this single Port Salerno CRA district. And then within that is the regulating plan that will break down the sub-districts. You'll recall that when we adopted Jensen Beach way back in September, Division 1 of Article 12, the first division of the new LDRs, was adopted, and that's the general section which applies to all of the different CRAs. It explains what your regulating plan is, how we created the permitted use categories, the development standards, how do you operate or navigate through this document. Also, sign standards, wall and fence standards, things that apply to all of the CRAs uniformly are in Division 1. However, with each of the subsequent divisions, Jensen Beach, here we are, Division 6, Port Salerno, those that have been adopted, Jensen, Rio, Old Palm City, and Hobe Sound, the code language and the maps have been tailored for each one of those areas. What applies in Jensen Beach doesn't necessarily apply in Rio, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why these have been crafted individually and adopted individually. I mentioned the regulating plan. This is the more detailed sub-district map that identifies the different sub-districts of core, general, corridor, waterfront, industrial, mobile home, multifamily, and 3 different detached districts. There are more sub-districts in Port Salerno, I believe, than in any of the other CRAs. It's a very complex CRA area. We've spent just an enormous amount of time going lot by lot and actually have had great input from the community. In fact, we've made a number of changes and redirected a number of times based upon public input, whether it's an individual who had aspirations on doing a certain type of setback with new construction, or a neighborhood that is concerned about, that reminded us that certain building types aren't permitted there today and they don't want them there tomorrow. In fact, we created an additional sub-district for this detached area up here because the rules for this area up near the pocket are different than the rest of the detached and this area over here next to the creek. So this has been, as Irene said, parallel to the future land use. The LDRs have been to 2 NAC meetings, received a recommendation of approval from the NAC, the CRA, and the LPA. This is a more detailed view of that. Now, if I could jump back a bit to Commissioner Hurd's point earlier, which I think was a good observation, you'll see the core sub-district is really what would be considered the core, if you will, the downtown-ish type area. The intensity drops off along the corridor, so different building types and different densities are permitted in these areas here. But again, we have to be respectful of what the existing rights are, or what the anticipated existing development rights are within the mixed-use overlays as they exist. The mobile home district remains here, this sub-district. These areas that are public service are the stormwater treatment areas and drainage ditches. The 2 cemeteries, which are Pinewood and the New Monrovia Cemetery, both go to public service district. It was interesting, in this process, we discovered that a quarter of the Pinewood Cemetery had been zoned general commercial. And when we met with the representatives of that, they were quite surprised because they have an entirely different anticipated use for that area than general commercial. So we were able to fix that. There are the corridor sub-districts, which we included in some of these parcels here because they have existing development rights that went beyond what the general sub-district allowed. So mainly, currently, a few parcels along the corridors are permitted to have fueling stations, gas stations, small ones. So what we've done is we've limited the number of pumps for any stations that might arrive there. We don't think a gas station will go on either one of those locations, but they're permitted today. And so we wanted to be sure to respect that. We also have the street regulating plan, which is identifies sort of priority corridors for future improvements, also identifies existing trails or in some cases proposed trails. It also identifies places where we might want to look at some new streets or the creation of new streets. I know down here by the school, the elementary school, there's just an unlit pathway there that this is really a guide for hopefully the CRA to prioritize improvements. Also working with the MPO with their complete street efforts. There's some segue in some of the CRAs between that effort as well. As I pointed out before, the county had illustrative street sections, but we sort of ramped them up a little bit and provide them as reference so that if there is a desire to do a complete street project within a CRA, there are different street sections that are already available as a reference, a tool for design. Obviously, this is a big street, and it wouldn't apply to a neighborhood, and obviously this is a neighborhood street that wouldn't apply to, you know, say Dixie Highway and Golden Gate as an example. But these are there for reference, and they're in Division 1, so they're there for all of the CRAs to use as desired. I mentioned the permitted uses. I think that, if I'm not mistaken, there's about 128 total permitted uses that are allowed throughout all of the CRAs, although not all of them, of course, are allowed in all areas or all CRAs. But rather than repeat all of these uses in all of these different documents, we decided to create what we called use groups. There are 5 residential use groups, 1 agricultural, 17 commercial use groups, etc. And that enables us to summarize the uses based upon their intensity. For instance, we've got construction services limited. That would be permitted in the core and in the general and with certain caveats within the waterfront. But construction services extensive would not be permitted anywhere except for industrial. And if you're wondering, well, what exactly are the uses that are construction services extensive? You simply go back to Division 1 and it just tells you exactly what those are. So as these tables are set up, we've got each of the sub-districts in a column, and then the uses that are permitted, the use groups that are permitted. And as I said, there are nuances, many nuances out there. So there's a number of notations where, for instance, duplexes are not permitted where they're not permitted today. Garages, parking garages, there was an extensive discussion about parking garages, particularly in the Manatee Cove neighborhood to the north there, opposite Pirates Cove. So we've gone through and picked up all of those via notations in the permitted use table. The companion table for that, which is the development standards, again, formatted the same way with each of the sub-districts in its own column. And if we take a closer look, you see that provides some of the critical primal criteria for development: the lot area minimum size, lot area maximum widths, building heights in feet, building heights in stories, maximum densities. One thing that we have done is increase the building heights, not in number of stories or in a leasable or saleable square footage, but just from 35 to 40 in some cases where, as we've discussed before, there's an allowance for greater floor to ceiling heights. So there's an ability to not only have buildings that can change adaptively over time, but also allow for better architectural treatments. The densities are also identified here, 15 units per acre in the core in general. In the waterfront, 10 units per acre, but it's very important that, well, the footnotes are down here, which I can barely read, but it refers to the marine service area where permanent residential is not permitted, and also that residential uses established prior to the effective date of this code may remain within a mixed-use project are permitted. At the bottom part of this development standards matrix is the building types and where the different building types are permitted. Again, following the same format: core, general, waterfront, corridor, etc. This is the array of building types that we've established, and as we've discussed before, each building type gets its own plate that has a visual description, a narrative, and tabular information about building heights, densities, setbacks, parking location, etc. And you can see they range from the shop front type building, which is your urban sort of downtown building, all the way to a more what we call the all yard, which is, frankly reflective of a lot of the housing stock that's out there already today, sort of the Florida ranch style on larger lots. And in the middle is the cottage, where you've got a very small, tight, sort of historic type cottage, and you want to maintain that type of fabric. So there's a wide array of building types that are available. And as we've discussed before, there's room as the need presents itself to actually create new building types. This is the boat barn that we created for Rio, and I think it applies very well to Port Salerno. Port Salerno actually has an example of a boat barn right up on its main street with like one little door in the middle of it. So this idea is that, it's a perfectly suitable and, acceptable use for the area, but rather than having huge blank walls up along the street, that by having a liner of depth of 10 or 15 feet as a minimum, I believe, you can have office space or retail or something that activates the street, so you don't end up with big blank corrugated metal walls. We've discussed in the past that there are building type and frontage type standards. These get into some of the minimal architectural criteria, like for instance, arcades. If you've ever walked through an arcade that's only 5 or 7 feet wide, it's not very usable. So there's usually a minimum dimension of 8 to 10 feet. Storefronts, these are meant to assist staff and applicants as they come in and to improve the level of architecture. These building and frontage standards are not required in the residential areas, but one of them must be used for the core, the corridor, and the waterfront subdistricts. So this again is where we are, back to our schedule. Hopefully, if we can move forward this morning, we will be back on September 15th, Tuesday, for the adoption hearing. And then it's on to finalizing Golden Gate. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Susan.
So staff would recommend a motion to enact Division 6 Port Salerno Community Redevelopment Code, Article 12, LDR Martin County Code, repealing Section 3.262, Article 3, Port Salerno Community Redevelopment Area, Martin County LDR, and to amend the zoning atlas to assign the Port Salerno Redevelopment Zoning District and other zoning districts for consistency with the future land use map.
Any questions for staff? Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, I'm just going to move through the packet. I'm going to start out on page 173 with the proposed regulating plan. An observation and a criticism that I have is that the colors are practically indistinguishable. The old zoning colors were very, very distinct, and it was very easy to tell what was what as you move from one to another. These are all various shades of sand, and it makes it really, really difficult to understand. And so I would certainly suggest that that could be improved. I'm looking at on Cove Road, and all of the parcels north of Cove Road are R3A, which is a residential zoning code. But now they've all moved to, no, not all of them. They've moved to either general or corridor. And corridor is there are 4 lots that have qualified for corridor, even though they're indistinguishable from all the other lots along there. What did they do that was so special that they're now allowed to have convenience stores and gas pumps?
Thank you, Commissioner. I would not characterize it as them doing anything special. They were originally proposed to be general, but then we discovered that they are currently allowed to do service stations.
Why? What have they done? Why have they been?
That's been on the books for, they have the general commercial future land use, and the adjacent ones do not. So that's just what's on, that's what we were working with, Commissioner. And so, you know, there are a lot of things that we've discovered through this whole process that maybe made sense a long time ago, or just through attrition has happened. But, you know, working with not only the growth management, but certainly your legal staff, Krista Story in particular, we wanted to make sure that we weren't putting the county in any legal jeopardy through these actions.
Well, until this, I think half of those parcels are undeveloped now.
Correct.
And one of them was developed with a building within the last 10 years. So these changes that have occurred, they've either the changes have not occurred or they have occurred very recently. So I just am curious as to...
If I may just address that further, that's why we added additional development standards to them, limiting the number of pumps, et cetera. We ran into this in Hobe Sound as well. And so we're trying to make lemonade out of that.
I'm looking at detached 1 zoning. It's consistent with medium-density residential future land use. It permits single-family duplexes and townhouses. How did you make a determination about what district was going to receive detached 1, what was going to get detached 2, and what was going to get detached 3? Because in all cases, they're pretty much single-family dwellings.
There are, I'm going to go back to the future land use for just a moment, even though that's not this item. You'll notice that the future land use, whenever we had a question, if there was a conflict between, sorry, my glasses are foggy, a conflict between the zoning and the existing future land use, we always defaulted back to what was allowed in the comprehensive plan today via the future land use categories. And Irene, I'm going to ask, these are up to 8 units per acre today? Or?
That's the, you have the zoning map.
Oh, sorry.
That's correct, though.
Let me go back here. There we go. So really what's driving those boundaries are the allowable densities that are on the books today. And so we're reflecting that. Now, this area up here, north of Manatee Pocket, explicitly does not, in the code today, explicitly does not allow duplexes. So we actually went back, after that was brought to our attention, we actually went back and created a third detached subdistrict. When we first went to the NAC, we only had two. We had recognized that the estate densities over here, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the, let me go back to the zoning real quick. Sorry to bounce back and forth. Actually, go to the regulating plan. The estate densities over here are detached 3. They have lower, I think it's 1 unit per lot is what's permitted. That's different than what's permitted throughout the vast majority of the single-family areas of Port Salerno. And yes, you're right. There are a lot of predominantly single-family, but there's also a lot of duplexes that exist already. And townhouses were considered, I believe, a desirable building type that would conform to the allowable densities that are there. But that's the distinction between the 3. Originally, we had this area up here as detached 1 as well, but like I said, it was pointed out to us that duplexes are explicitly prohibited in this area today, so we're respecting that. That is not the case for the rest of the areas, and we actually spoke to, a couple of developers of duplexes, and not all of them are the same. There are actually some quite nice ones that are being built in the CRA areas. So that's kind of the balance that we have to make, in doing this entire effort. What's allowed today, what is possibly allowed because you're within an overlay. So that's why getting rid of the overlays was so important.
I'm still on page 175, and I'm just confused. In detached 2 and detached 3, detached 2 has a minimum lot area of 7,500 square feet, but residential lots were permitted to be as narrow as 16 feet for a townhouse or 35 feet for a rear yard or side yard house. The same is true of a detached 3 zoning district. So which one regulates 16 feet wide or 60 feet wide in detached 2? Because it says both things.
Up on the screen, I have the development standards page. And here's detached 1. It has a minimum lot area of 2,500 square feet and a minimum lot width of 25 feet. Detached 2 has a minimum area of 5,000 square feet and a minimum lot width of 50 feet. And detached 3 has a minimum lot area, and this is the estate lots. And they actually range in size, so this is reflective of what's allowed today, and a minimum lot width of 75 feet. I don't have the staff, do you have the staff report?
No.
Available to see the page that you're looking at, where you're finding the discrepancy.
It's on page 175. So it says that the existing zoning districts in detached 2 have a minimum lot area of 7,500 square feet and a minimum lot width of 60 feet. Whereas detached 3, an existing zoning, has a 75-foot minimum lot width and an 8,200 square foot minimum lot area.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, it's possible that there is an error in my staff report. If I said that detached 2 requires 7,500 square feet, so I wanted to get to can we get to the agenda item? Here? Yeah, but I was trying to bring it up on the screen.
To your left, Irene. Down.
One over to the right.
To the right.
To the right.
That,
No.
Stop.
Left, right.
Keep going.
I know, that's right.
Left. Right there. There you go.
Page 175. So look at detached 2 and detached 3. In the detached 2, the second paragraph, it says that the minimum lot width is 60 feet and the minimum lot area of 7,500 square feet, and then talks about the 16
Right. So
foot for a townhouse.
I'm describing, in those paragraphs, I am describing the zoning that exists now. So detached 2 is covering a neighborhood that currently has the R2B single-family residential zoning and the R2A two-family zoning. And so those standards, the 7,500 square feet, and then the question about townhouses on 16-foot wide lots, which comes from the, not from the R2B and the R2A, but from Section 3.262, which is the Port Salerno CRA zoning. So that's just background about trying to explain that the new standards are not that different from what exists now to what is being proposed. The detached 2, the predominant lot widths of those existing platted lots, some of them are 50 feet wide, some of them are 60 feet wide, and we've established a 50-foot minimum lot area. The detached 2, minimum lot width, the detached 2 zoning subdistrict does not permit townhouses. The detached 2 zoning subdistrict is going to permit just the detached single-family dwelling. So I apologize if that was confusing.
And in detached 3, is there a minimum lot size? Is there a minimum lot?
Yes. In the detached 3, we carried forward the existing minimum lot width and minimum lot area. So that area now has R1B zoning, which requires a minimum lot area of 8,200 square feet and a minimum lot width of 75 feet. And that's the standard that will apply in detached 3.
Okay. I'm on page 176. It says, for purposes of Article 12, primary streets are not necessarily the streets that carry the most traffic, but are the streets where the quality of the public realm is most important. That seems like how are you going to make that distinction? I mean, is that a regulation? Or is that just editorializing? How do you determine the streets where the quality of the public realm is most important?
Well, I think as was identified by the community a couple of decades ago when they created the zoning overlays and the mixed-use future land use overlays that identify Cove Road and Salerno Road and A1A Dixie Highway, that those are really important streets for the public realm, the feeling that you have as you enter the community, as you travel through the community. In the case of Port Salerno, the streets identified as primary streets happen to also be the ones that carry the most traffic. But the designation of primary street isn't about the traffic count, but it's about the desired streetscape, the generous street trees and the pulling buildings closer to the sidewalk, et cetera.
I'm on page 176, an observation. Mr. Little said that the maximum heights increased from 35 to 40. I'm on page 177. Residential uses are going from a required minimum open space of 50% to 30%. Why?
Can you tell me where you're looking, Commissioner, please? Oh, at the detached 1, detached 2. Well,
I presume residential is multifamily, detached 1 and 2, and detached 3. So they've gone from 50%.
The current, the future, our residential future land use designations generally require 50% open space. But the comprehensive plan expressly excludes from that requirement all the existing platted lots of record that predate the comprehensive plan. And in Port Salerno, all of these lots predate the comprehensive plan. And the 30% open space is what is most consistent with the zoning districts and what is required on those individual lots. We're carrying forward the predominant standard that applies to them now.
Except that it's not, it's 50%.
No, the comprehensive plan expressly exempts from the 50% minimum open space for the residential future land uses. It expressly exempts all the platted lots of record that predate the comp plan. So the 50% open space based on the future land use designation does not apply throughout the Port Salerno residential neighborhoods because all those lots predate the 82 comp plan. And the open space requirement is determined by the zoning district, and 30% is generally what is required.
I won't belabor it. I'm on page 190, and I'm looking at the darkest color brown, east of Dixie Highway.
Yes.
Correct,
and
Salerno
it's-
Shores.
It's multifamily,
That's
and that area is definitely not mostly multifamily, it's mostly single family. So why did you select that area
Well, we did-
alone among these areas in order to receive that designation?
Two things. One is the existing zoning, which I forget whether it's, I think it was R3, the existing zoning permits multifamily in that area. And in fact, we did go through lot by lot and identify the number of multifamily dwellings in this area, and there are quite a few. So it's two things. One, there are a lot of multifamily in there now, and two, the existing zoning permits that now. The density, medium density residential, 8 units an acre maximum, has been carried forward. So the density hasn't changed, and the permitted uses reflects what's permitted now.
Commissioner, I believe that I have that diagram at the back of my presentation, if you'd like me to bring it up, that identifies all the multifamily properties. The
Okay,
existing-
sure.
I'm sorry, would you like me to?
Sure.
Okay. I promise to remember where to find the agenda. So I hope I am not a liar.
There it is.
Here we go. Okay, good. So Irene Settlemyer went through. Sorry, it was you. Who went through and did this analysis of these are. So the blue are existing multifamily or proposed multifamily. So you can see this is a multifamily complex here. This is a proposed multifamily development here. This is a multifamily complex here. This is all multifamily. This is all multifamily. Everything in blue is multifamily. The red dots are vacant parcels, just so we could get a sense of what the vacancies were. The red outlines are actually commercial properties. So this is commercial up here, commercial there. It's really limited to this area up here. Yellow dots are single family, and then the green outlines are duplexes. So you can see that between the blue and the green and the red, there's a substantial number of existing non-single family structures that are within this Salerno Shores community. Now, to your point, I think, though, Commissioner, we find this sort of degree of discovery as we go through the different CRAs. I spoke with a few residents who were shocked that we were turning this into a multifamily area, and then they were even more shocked when they realized that it already is a multifamily area. And that's not our recommendation, that's what exists today. Now, single-family houses are perfectly permitted there. In fact, one of the residents who we had a lot of discourse with is intending on building a single-family house in the area, so we had to adjust the setbacks to meet what was allowed, today. But we're not making a change to increase densities or intensities in this area. We're just carrying forward what's currently permitted today.
Okay, thank you. I'm on page 211, and you showed this figure, this illustration before, and it's a boat barn, and I just wonder where this boat barn is an allowable use.
Oh, well, okay, let me go back. Boat barn is permitted in the corridor, the waterfront, and the industrial subdistricts. You can see right here, the permitted subdistricts. So each of the building type pages identifies, as I said before, an illustration, the tabular data of setbacks, et cetera, but also a description of what it is, why are we even doing this, and also where is it permitted, in what subdistricts. And this is consistent with what's allowed today relative to the waterfront commercial areas. So if you'd like, I can bring up the regulating plan to show you those subdistricts.
That's good. I know that the only one that would be in question is corridor, and I know exactly where the 4 properties are that have that zoning regulation on them.
Right. So as you can see, we had to sift sort of lot by lot as to what's allowed, what's potentially allowed, and where we were going, what direction.
I'm on page 239, and it's part of the regulating plan for required commercial frontage, and I just don't understand what paragraph D means.
Required commercial frontage has really only applied in one of the CRAs so far, which is in Hobe Sound, where on Dixie, the desire was to make sure that that small 2-block area of the sort of historic Main Street remain commercial on the ground floor and not turn into something else, not become all residential. So it's simply a matter to, an instrument to try to protect some of those historic Main Streets. It hasn't been applied in Port Salerno. It's really not appropriate, not applicable to Port Salerno.
Okay.
And you'll note that this is in Division 1 as well. So these, this is setting up, this is the discussion setting up what some of these different regulations are that may or may not apply in the subsequent divisions.
Okay. And I'm on page 241, permitted uses under, well, I don't know. Specifically, where are convenience store with fuel, where are drive-through facilities, where are drive-through restaurants, where are parking lots and garages, and where are recreational vehicle parks allowed?
Okay, let me just follow you. Convenience store with fuel, drive-through facility, drive-through restaurant, and then
Parking lots and garages and recreational vehicle parks.
Okay, let me go back to the each one of those is its own use group. Okay, so I can follow that. Bear with me just a second. So what we do is we go back to the permitted use table, which is here. So drive-through facilities are not permitted anywhere in Port Salerno. Drive-through restaurants are not permitted anywhere in Port Salerno. Convenience stores with fuel are only permitted in the corridor sub-districts.
Okay.
And we already discussed that.
Yep.
And then the parking lots and garages are permitted in the core, the general, and the corridor. However, in the corridor, we have a, what is that? Is that 5?
3.
No, it's 5. There we go. There's a footnote, number 5, that says garages are not permitted. And if you'll indulge me for just a second, I just want to show you why that came up. There was a lot of discussion about these properties here. immediately opposite Pirates Cove, and they are currently permitted to have parking on them, but, and the NAC confirmed when we met with them that they've had lengthy discussions about that, and they felt comfortable as a board about that. However, the subgroup, or excuse me, the use group, as you pointed out, says parking and garages, and they're like, we certainly don't want a garage there. And we said, well, we certainly don't want one there either. So that's why the footnote is there, that garages are not permitted in these areas.
Okay.
Sorry, it's a long answer to a short question.
And recreational vehicle parks, are those not allowed?
Oh, let's go back. Recreational vehicle parks.
No, I see that they're
Yeah,
not.
they're not
Okay.
permitted anywhere in Port Salerno.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Campy.
Mr. Little, earlier this morning, when we were discussing a different agenda item, I said that I was a big fan of your work. This agenda item is a perfect example of why I said that. We're almost done with the CRAs, and I've said this to you because it strikes me, and I'm sure it strikes many others. You and your team from the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, I know Jessica has been integral in helping you with these. You treat each one of these like you're only working on one. You know the fine details of street to street and almost lot to lot, and I give you just tremendous amount of credit and praise for your ability to do that. This is a Herculean effort. Even to just do a single neighborhood would be a challenge, but you know, under Commissioner Hurd's questioning, you are unflappable, you know the answers, and you've done a remarkable job. Your team has earned every penny.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate you mentioning the team because...
Wait, I'm not done.
Okay.
I'm not foolish. I know you've worked very collaboratively
Clearly,
with our
Dana,
staff.
you have not been to one of our meetings before.
Our Office of Community Development, Growth Management, and Legal, I know that you keep turning to them. It's a seamless transition between our outside professional consultants and our inside professional staff. I could not be more proud of how this process has gone. These are very complicated but very serious issues because everyone, and I know that there's some folks here representing a property owner. This is, although it starts to feel mundane and we can start to gloss over it, for the individual people that own these properties, and in many cases this is their whole entire financial life, every one of the decisions that are made, every little finite detail is very, very important, even to the future of what these neighborhoods would look like. If our team and your team make a mistake and something gets overlooked, we could potentially be in legal trouble in the future, or we could create a situation unknowingly that someone could do something that could destroy the fabric of a community. So, I mean, we're kidding lightly about how you've done, but all of you have done a remarkable job on something that is so detailed but so important, so I congratulate you and I thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to confirm, because maybe I was mistaken, but there was a slide that was shown in terms of the recommendation for adoption. This is the first of 2 required public hearings, so there would not be an adoption. And one of the recommendations in the agenda item is for the board to agree to hold the next public hearing on September 15th prior to 5:00 p.m. So again, today is not for adoption. It has to come back to you a second time. Okay.
Commissioner Smith. You have your light on.
Oh, I didn't hear you say it. I'm sorry.
Oh.
So thank you, Ed, for saying that, because you captured 95% of what I wanted to say with just a few more add-ons about the team that has done this work. The reason why I so often recommend working with the Regional Planning Council, first of all, they are quasi our staff. This is a partnership that we have with the Regional Planning Council, that we are paid members and participants in the Regional Planning Council staff, and we make up the Regional Planning Council. So de facto, they're really not consultants. They're really kind of an extension of our team, our staff, and we are incredibly fortunate to have that talent here sitting right in downtown Stewart, because there are other parts of the state that would love to have the access, and sometimes they do access the talent that we have, but we have the benefit of having them right here in town, which makes it incredibly convenient and incredibly supportive and productive for us. So I agree wholeheartedly, and what I've heard from our NAC folks, from CRA members, and from the community as a whole, the partnership that really our staff has worked with the Regional Planning Council to achieve what they have done in these 2 years, or year and a half, has been nothing short of remarkable, and I hear nothing but positive from everybody that I've communicated to. And to the point that, in many cases, we are criticized for not being open, not being transparent, not being as much as we should be relative to any part of our process. I always love Dana's first, I guess it's his third and fourth slide that show the amount of public meetings that they have done to make sure that every little point needs to be pointed and talked about. You can't really find a more transparent and more open process than what the Regional Planning Council and our staff have done with this effort. And so, again, thank you for all of that. It makes us look ridiculously good. I think to Commissioner Campy's point about, both our staff and the Regional Planning Council being able to answer any question on a dime down to the nano, second of the street, I think is commendable. You guys are so incredibly well prepped and well done with this. It just proves how fortunate we are to have you in our midst, which gives me the confidence that when I think about another project or any project that we do with them, I always have the confidence going into that project that we will get this kind of work product from the Regional Planning Council on anything we do with them. And so, again, guys, thank you very, very much for that. One other thing I just want to make sure that, because we didn't talk about it, Irene, and I don't know where this fits in, is the property that was raised
Yes.
by Mr. Raines.
Yes.
Are you going to?
Yes.
Okay, so.
That's why I'm standing here. Yes. Thank you, Commissioner. I did want to follow up on the discussion during the future land use map amendment with regard to the Schultz property and the commercial dock. And, the board is aware, staff is aware of that situation. We have proposed for that property the CRA Center future land use and the general zoning subdistrict. Currently, the general zoning subdistrict does not provide for that commercial dock to be a permitted use. We are aware of that, and when we come back for the second reading in September, we will have recommendations for the board to address the situation of that property owner and other similarly situated property owners. We'll be fixing that situation. Or we'll be making a recommendation in the land development regulations that address that situation.
Commissioner Smith.
So in the motion, Irene, do you need us to approve that we bring this back for second reading in September, but also with the notation that any other corrections or any other additions to the discovery between now and September be included in the presentation or in the adoption hearing in September, as well as this waterfront dock issue will be highlighted specifically? I mean, is that?
That's at the board's pleasure, yes.
But do you want that in the motion?
Sure.
Okay, then Mary Kay, I would make that motion that we accept, are we approving today's
Before,
presentation?
and
No.
the second public hearing to be scheduled before 5 o'clock?
So, okay, so my motion is to accept the staff's presentation today, to schedule the second public hearing on September 15th, correct? Before 5 o'clock. And that we also direct staff to come back to us in that second hearing with language that defines and helps us better create this waterfront dock issue so that it is applicable to the Salerno CRA Will it just be specific to Salerno, or will it be something for all of our waterfront?
Well, staff's only begun its analysis, but there are, in the other CRAs, there are no general zoning sub-districts on the waterfront. So, we'll be approaching
That's
this.
fine. So if there's something we need to go back and correct in the future relative to another CRA, we'll come back and deal with that separately.
Correct.
Okay, so Mary Kay, my motion would just be to include that this discussion be outlined, detailed, relative to the second public hearing.
Second.
We do have one speaker form. Are you good with that, or would you like to add to the?
For the record, Bob Raines here again on behalf of Richard Schultz, and I really just want to echo what some of the comments from the commissioners were, because I think what we're dealing with Mr. Schultz is a perfect example of, the staff being aware and working through, and the transparency, and, this brought forward this opportunity to address this issue. So we appreciate it. As I said at the land use comments, we're just trying to figure out how best to address it. Whatever the solution is, we're certainly willing to continue to work with the staff. And so I just wanted to make the comments that I do think the process is working, and this is a good example of it, because he had an opportunity to bring this forward and address it. So thank you. We'll look forward to working with the staff to address it.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries 4-1. Commissioner Hurd dissenting. It is 5 after 12, lunchtime. See everybody at 1:30.